Well, can I welcome you all from all over the world, from wherever you are, to the last of our talks in this series on the Abhidhamma from Venerable Dhammasami, Venerable Dr. Dhammasami from Shan State Buddhist University in Myanmar. And I must say they've been a very successful series. They've been most interesting and personally for me, very enlightening and helpful. And I assume for many of the audience too. We do hope to continue at some point with these talks as we go forward, but I don't want to take up too much time because time is precious and we want to talk about the Dharma and not about all the VAT of life. But many thanks. Thank you very much, Dhammasami, for all your very hard work and these wonderful, inspiring talks that will lead to further study. And the subject of today's talk is rupa, the analysis of matter, and where we go from here. So without more ado, I hand over to you, Dhammasami, and thank you again so much.
Thank you, Dr. Desmond Bhikkhu, the chairman of the Buddhist Society, and also for your kind introduction, for your kind comments on the course. Before we start, we are going to pay homage to the Buddha, as usual, by reciting Namo Tassa 3 times together. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Today is about matter, mind and matter. So we have discussed about the mind for 5 weeks. And I only arranged, 1 week just for today to discuss matter. You can see that, from this arrangement, I'm more interested in the mind. I think I have spoken about the mind maybe hundreds of hours. And perhaps this is the first time, the first hour, that I will be dedicating myself totally to matter or to material. I just noticed today that I have never given any talk on matter, on its own. This is the first time. And for the whole week, I wasn't quite sure. I haven't been quite decisive what to say. So I just sent you some of the pages, that is one table, and maybe some of the pages, from this book, Comprehensive Manual of Abhidhamma. This is the basic book, the root text, which I use for this course. You have, as far as I'm aware, about 3 translations of this book. And this is the latest, and I should say the most comprehensive one, by Bhikkhu Bodhi, who is an American scholar, who has translated mainly the suttas anew. When I'm interested in matter, in material, I'm interested in this. For the welfare and well-being of our physical body, and also from ethical point of view. That much is my interest. So today I'm not going to cover everything. I'm just going to explain how Theravada Abhidhamma classify matters, each one, okay? And then how we group them, how we look at them, and then how we look at their causes. So that's about it that I would cover today. I'm not going to talk about the clusters of matter, what we say rupa klapa. Of course, you know, this subject, if you are interested, is available even in Wikipedia. So it's not that difficult at all. Okay? It's within your reach. And by the way, a more detailed analysis of this book, you can Google it. Okay, Theravada Abhidhamma, with Bhikkhu Bodhi's name. He has given many lectures. I think maybe I'm not sure exactly. Maybe 20, more than 20 lectures, and he uses this book. So if you want to follow this text, if you want to understand the text, you have his lectures online. Okay, I have listened that myself. But if that's what you're interested in, after this short introduction, the series of talks, you know, I would like to ask you to use this book and also listen to that lecture, to those lectures. If you listen to those lectures, that will prepare you for the next series of lectures that I will do with the Buddhist Society, which is a more advanced one. Okay, I will revisit some of the topic that we have discussed before I move on to the more analytical, more advanced discussion. But for today, before we look at the list, or maybe we look at the list first. We look at the table. Lavinia, can you upload can you share the table? 28 materials. Okay. So this is how Theravada Abhidhamma looks at it. You have two columns. The first one consists of 18 matters. The second one only 10. And the title is rather sort of jargon, if you like. If you like, concretely produced matters and non-concrete matters. And what do they mean? Put it this way. The 18, the first column, concretely produced matter, they are real matters. The real material. They stand on that, they stand with their own characteristics. Okay. The other 10, they are not separate matters in themselves. You can see over there, number 19, that's the first one in the second column. It's called space. Space is a concept. Okay, this is my office, this is my room. I have 4 walls, okay, in 4 directions, and above I have ceiling, and down below I have floor. So based on the wall behind me, based on the wall in front of me, and also left and right, we develop the idea of space. Spacious, for example. So space, the idea of space depends on these four walls. It depends on others. The idea of space does not stand on its own. We look at space, okay, the space, what we call the space where the plane flies above our head. Then we have different other matters before we can consider the idea of space. There is a space, there is no space in the expression that we usually make. Okay, the idea of space is dependent on, is conditioned by the existence of other matters. So this is an example of non-concrete matters. In Pali, it's called anipanna rupa, not produced by its own nature, its own characteristic. And you can see bodily intimation. Oh, before I go there, let me expand a little bit about space. Then what about the wall behind me? In conventional sense, we call this a wall. This wall is matter, is material. But we look at this wall in a more analytical way. So this wall, when I touch it, the hardness is called the earth element. There's only earth element. And of course, different particles are there, grouping together. Something that bind them together, make them cohere. That coherence is water element, for example. So in this, you have water element also. There's no water to our naked eye, but there's water element working to keep those different particles together. In the same way, there is heat and cold element in there. The air element we are talking about the characteristics. The pushing and expanding, that kind of characteristic is what we call air element. So, the idea of matter that we form, we go by. We are not talking about an item, Yes, this book, it happened to be about Chitta-Sika. This book is matter, mind matter. This book is matter, not mind, it's matter. It belongs to the group of matter. But the way we analyze this is from a human perspective. When I look at this, I can feel the hardness. We call this hardcover anyway, conventionally. So this hardness is what we call the earth element. The earth is a good example of hardness, the quality of hardness. But when we talk about the quality of hardness, we are not talking just exclusively about hardness, but we also talk about softness. You see, that sort of thing, that Abhidhamma analysis of matter goes. So if you compare these two tables, bodily intimation, you can look at my hands, okay, my hands moving. Intimation, as we know in English, is the hint is the maybe the appearance. But when I'm moving my hands, because in my mind, okay, there is a volition, there's an intention. An intention that comes out, okay, explaining this subject matter. So I use my body intimation in order to connect with you. In order to connect with you. So when I'm moving like this, first is my thought, my intention, and then that volition-based consciousness impacts on the wind element, and the wind element is making my hand move. You see, I hope it makes sense to you. I'm not trying to make it complicated. So to make it interesting, this is how matter is considered. Bodily intimation is not real matter. It depends on the wind element. And the wind element is caused by, at this point in time, by my intention to speak, to talk, to discuss. We come back to this later, how the mind and the matter are related. But here I just would like to explain the second column, bodily intimation. The same is vocal intimation. When I want to speak, that my mind causes my voice to come out. You see? So that intimation, that vocal intimation, we're not talking about the sound of voice, we're talking about vocal intimation. That vocal intimation doesn't exist on its own as matter, as a separate matter. Instead, it relies on others to exist. The same goes with other, like lightness of what? Lightness of this book, in comparison with the other book, and this book. This book is actually lighter than this book. That sort of thing. Okay. And the characteristic, the coming, that's production, the coming into existence, and the continuity and the decay, impermanent. These are all characteristics. They are not, as I have repeated a few times, matters in themselves, stand-alone, independent matters in themselves. So, observing the real matters, the Abhidhamma comes up with the list of 10. We don't call them unreal matter, but we call them non-concrete matters, matters that exist depending on the other matters. The other matters that exist on their own characteristic, by their own nature, okay, by their own nature. 18 of them. You can see over there, you can see the list. The earth element, water, fire, air, those four we call them essential, the great attention essential. They are the fundamental matters. And the other 14, depend on them. Depend on them. So we call them the great essential, and then the other 14, we call them the dependent matters. What about the 10 that I explained earlier? Bhikkhu Bodhi translates from Pali as it is as non-concrete matter. But Professor Wang Karunadasa called this in a way that we can understand. He called the 10 as the nominal dependent matter. Nominal. Okay. They exist only in our perception. The 14 part of the 18, they are called the real dependent matters. The real dependent matters. So with this, I hope you can see I hope you start seeing a big picture. Okay, now let's look at sensitive phenomena, meaning the senses. The eye, the ears, the nose, the tongue, the body. Sensitivity is a translation. We may say sense in ordinary description. The eye, ear, nose, tongue, body. This is clear that they are matters. They are materials. The next group, objective phenomena, they are to correspond with the 5 senses. The visual form, work with the eye. The eye sees something visual. And then the ear, you can see the ear goes with the sound, the nose with smell, and the body with taste. So far is clear. Something that needs explanation is tangibility. Tangibility with body, that's a touch. When we touch something, we touch something tangible. If we talk about body. Tangible or touch does exist on its own. And here Abhidhamma says, yes. In which way? It says, out of the 4 elements, only 3 we can come into contact, can be touched. The earth, the fire, and the air, not water. So you can see over there, earth, fire, and air, 3 of them. We call them tangible matter. Tangible matter. 3 of them combine, and they present another form of matter. These usages, like these 10 earth, water, fire elements, you have them in the suttas very often, in the discourses. Eye with form, ear with sound, nose with smell, tongue with taste. Again, you come across very often in the suttas when the Buddha talks about the sense basis, the senses, sense organ, senses or sense organ, and then sense basis. And of course also body and tangibility. But tangibility is explained in the Abhidhamma like this. Earth, fire and water combined, they are called tangibility. And then we have sexual phenomenon. This is of femininity and masculinity. And then we have heart phenomena, that heart base. Heart as the base of consciousness. A lot of discussion, okay, from I think at least from the 5th century AD about heart in this subject, a lot of discussion. And then life phenomena, the life faculty. Life faculty, we in the Chitasika we have mental life faculty. That's even when we are asleep, this faculty goes on. In the same way, with matter, there is correspondence, the life faculty. I mean, this book has all its explanation. I shouldn't be spending a lot of time, a lot of your time on this, because you can you can just read it on your own. But what I'm trying to give you is a big picture, a sense of how we look at the materials of matter in Buddhism. You can see here, you can look at the list. We are not looking at the matter from the point of view of consumption or producing things. We are looking at the list or at the material, at the physical body, from spiritual point of view. When we do meditation, okay, we have to observe the mind, okay, but we can't observe the mind straight away. So we have to observe the channel where the mind operates. That the ear, the eye, the ears, the nose, the tongue, the body. So we observe those activities in order to see the mind and the factors that influence the mind. And when we observe, for example, pain, if we break the pain down into the 4 elements, for example, this is hardness, this hard element, this earth element. And when you see the muscle being tense, meaning pulling, expanding, then this is air element. By looking at the pain, the sensation in that way, the mind becomes less and less personalized. We don't say, okay, my leg, my pain. Instead, we analyze the pain into different matters and see them as something natural. So you can see, we look at the matter in order to train the mind. In order to train the mind. So in order to train the mind, this much is efficient, is sufficient. If we look at the senses, okay, the mind operates through those senses. If you watch television, your eyes and ears, they work more than any other senses. So if you get upset, maybe because you are not guarding your eyes. The eye sensitivity according to this list. If you get upset sometimes because you listen to something, then you listen to something negative. What you have to do then is to be mindful of what comes into your ears, to be mindful of what comes into your eyes. Like that. And then nutriment. We're not talking about food, different food items. We're not talking about it. We talk about the how this body exists. So it needs nutriment. I think this much is enough to go through the basic analysis of matter. Now, Lavinia, can you change to the other karma as mode of origin? Okay, we are going to read this together. Now, how do these matters exist? They exist because of the four causes. There are four causes. The first cause is called karma. So the translation is called karma as a mode of origin. In Pali is called samudana. Okay. Let me read the translation for you. There in the 25 kinds of wholesome and unwholesome karma pertaining to the sense sphere and the 5 material sphere produce in one's internal continuum volitional condition material phenomena originating from karma, movement by movement, beginning with rebirth linking. Rebirth linking is the first consciousness that happens, in the womb of the mother. Now it says 25 kinds of wholesome and unwholesome karma. Now you need to revisit different types of consciousness. We talk about 89 types of consciousness. I hate to make you bored, by revisiting many lists. But here, I think I should do it. 25. What are 25? Karma. So in terms of the citta, in terms of consciousness, unwholesome karma than wholesome karma. In addition to karma, what do we have? We have resultant consciousness, that vipaka. So vipaka, they are not karma, they are just the result of karma. Many Buddhists, in their popular opinion, they don't actually distinguish between karma and its results properly. Sometimes they are referring to the results, but they use the word karma. In the 24, for example, in the 24 wholesome, sense sphere, beautiful citta, 24 of them. You have 8 wholesome consciousnesses, and 8 the results of those wholesome. 8 are the results. And another 8, the last 8, they are what we call kiriya, mere consciousnesses. They don't produce karma effect anymore because they happen in the arhat, in the enlightened people. Okay. Those enlightened people, they don't do anything in order to achieve something. They don't do good thing in order to bring good karma. Because karma brings rebirth, and they know rebirth brings suffering. So they don't want that anymore. So when they do anything good, they do so because their mind is pure, because their mind is compassionate. They are not doing something because they fear, not because they want something from us. If you remember, threat, focus, that's out of fear. We do something out of fear. Incentive focus, that is, we want something. But for the enlightened people, like Arahant, their mind doesn't operate in those modes anymore, in those threat focus or incentive focus. Threat focus is dosa group. Okay. Incentive focus is lobha group. So we have 8 multiplied by 324. That is the sense sphere, beautiful chittas. And only 8 of them are qualified as karma. We call them as karma, meaning they have the potential to produce results. So we look at that way. Here 25, what are you going to do? The first is 12 unwholesome citta. And then we have 8, which I mentioned just now, I explained just now. And then we have another 5. That's from material sphere. In material sphere, you have 15 altogether. 5 of them are wholesome. Another 5, the second 5, they are just result. We call them resultant consciousnesses. And the last 5, they are kiriya. That happen in the minds of the Arahant, enlightened people. So they have nothing to do with karma. So only 5 of them are related to karma. I hope, okay, I'm not making you bored, okay. It's not so boring. If you're interested in the detail, this is rather fascinating. To be thinking about the list in your mind and mutating, that sort of thing. We do this when we were young, and in order to see the list clearly in our mind, we have to switch off the light. And we talk to our teachers and with our classmates, okay, in the dark. In the dark. So it's okay if the light went out, it's okay. Actually, we deliberately switch off the light in order to do this. So in Myanmar, we call this evening lesson. The word evening means, okay, it's dark. And you're not supposed to switch on the light. Instead, you are supposed to be thinking about the table, like what we mentioned earlier. We have more table, a lot of tables, and then to create discussion out of this is a fascinating way of of studying Abhidhamma as well is a way of internalizing, if you like, the teaching, absorbing the teaching. What about the immaterial consciousnesses? Wow, the name is already called immaterial, so they have nothing to do with matter, with rupa, so forget about them. And the supramundane, okay, once you reach that state, you already go to Kiriya Chitta. You don't produce karma anymore. For the defilement that you have got rid of, those defilements, they don't produce karma anymore. So when we talk about the kind of karma that produces matter, produces material, we don't talk about them. So we talk only about 25 kinds of consciousness out of 89. You need a bit of thinking, and if you can satisfy yourself, how we understand karma, and ultimately how we, through Buddhist practices, intend to go beyond karma, then you would understand this quite easily. So let me read the guide, guide to number 10. Number 10, this is paragraph number 10. Material phenomena originating from karma. Karma samutthana rupa. Karma here refers to volition, cetana, in past wholesome and unwholesome states of consciousness. The 25 kinds of karma, meaning here consciousness is 25 kinds of karma, that produce material phenomena are the volition of the 12 unwholesome chittas, the 8 great wholesome chitta, that in Pali we call maha-kusala, and then the 5 material wholesome chittas. The volitions of the wholesome immaterial sphere chitta generate rebirth in immaterial plane, thus cannot produce material phenomena originating from karma. Karma produces material phenomena at each sub-moment among the 3 sub-moments of consciousnesses. What are the sub-moments? Arising, present, dissolution. Earlier we come across the word production, continuity, and decay. Starting with the arising sub-moment of rebirth linking consciousness, it continued to do so throughout the course of existence up to the 17th mind moment preceding the dead consciousness. The 17th moment, we haven't discussed this. It's about momentary theory in the Abhidhamma. I have skipped this, and maybe we leave this to the next series. Where are we? It continued to do so throughout the course of existence up to the 17th mind moment preceding the dark consciousness. I have the camera in front of me, so I have to read it from this. 18 kinds of material phenomena are produced by karma. the five sensitivity, the five senses, the two sex faculties, the life faculty, the heart base, and space. Okay. 9 kinds of, of these 9 kinds. Now they go into detail. I think it would confuse you to read more lists. Actually, those lists you can work out on your own if you read this book and if you listen to Bhikkhu Bodhis. What I'm concerned is to give you a big picture. Using the big picture that you understand the principle that we discuss, so that you can go on study on your own. The reading lists that I have given you, they are usually quite easy to follow. So the 4 courses, one is karma, second one is consciousness, that's mine. The third one is like, shall we say, climate, like heat and cold, like that. And the last one is nutrition. So they are the 4 courses that maintain this matter, the physical body. Karma, citta, that's consciousness, and then udu, that is Bhikkhu Bodhi translates it as temperature, and then the last one is nutrition. The second one, just go through quickly. Okay, consciousness as mode of origin. So that is the second, the second course of rupa. What we are talking about here, we say matter or materials or the physical body is produced by these 4 causes. There's no creator. That's what we say. We can look at the causes here and analyze them. Consciousness as mode of origin. 75 types of consciousnesses, excluding the immaterial sphere resultant and the 2 sets of 5-fold sense consciousnesses, produce material phenomena originating from consciousness, beginning with the first moment of the life continuum, but they do so only after or at the moment of arising. Without going into detail about 75, okay, because if you read carefully over there, it's already clear what it says. We always exclude the immaterial because we are talking about material. And something that might surprise you is the 2 sets of 5-fold sense consciousnesses. They are they are resultant, and you can see the explanation over there, Bhikkhu Bodhi Guide to number 11. Now let's go to temperature as mode of origin. If you don't have it, it's okay. I'm just going to read it. The fire element, which comprises both cold and heat, on reaching its stage of presence, produces, according to circumstances, both internal and external material phenomena originating from temperature. This is to say that temperature also has impact, okay, on the physical body. Not just our physical body, but also the material outside, the plant, for example. I don't think this is a typical thing to see. We talk so much about global warming these days. So, how life changes from the temperature. The world has been trying unsuccessfully to do something about this. All the Kyoto, Paris, and all those agreements. Some of the important countries have not signed them, not implemented them. The last one is nutriment as a mode of origin. I just wanted to read a simple translation here. Nutriment, known as a nutritive essence, on reaching its stage of presence, produces material phenomena originating from nutriment at the time it's swallowed. So when we swallow food, then the nutrition in that food changes our body, has an impact on our body. We don't need to talk about it. It's so evident, it's so clear. When we are hungry, when there's no food, here it doesn't talk about food, it talks about nutrition. So when there's no enough nutrition, what happens? We know exactly what happened. And if we take in wrong nutrition, what happened? We know it. So Abhidhamma is interested in this as well. I'm going to conclude with one last short discussion. One chapter in this, one section in this chapter is called classification of matter. I'm not going through how we classify as internal, external, because the description needs no explanation. It's just so clear if you read them. For example, the eye is internal, the visual object is external, the ear is internal matter, and sound is external. This kind of thing is just so simple. But here, something interesting to me, what I would like to share with you is how we classify them in relation to the mind. Earlier, we have just discussed how the mind also changes the matter, how the mind impacts the matter. Okay. In addition to karma, in addition to temperature and nutrition. But this one is more psychological in terms of its presentation. I'm going to read the translation. Okay, I didn't send this to Odin, so I'm just going to read. It's from page 243. The title of the section is Classification of Matter, Rupa Vibhaga. I quote, okay, I read the translation. Now all this matter is singlefold, meaning it has singlefold, manifold, and so on. It goes by the number. But I'm just picking up the first analysis, the category of singlefold. Okay. Now all this matter is singlefold insofar as it is all, number one, rootless. When we talk about root, the root of consciousness, the root of negative emotion, they are greed, hatred, anger. But when it comes to matters, when it comes to my eyes, no roots. no negative or positive root. They are rootless. We have seen 18 rootless citta or consciousness. Now this is also all the matters, and they are also rootless. Positive roots like generosity, loving kindness, and wisdom. Okay. These material, these matter, they have nothing to do with those positive roots either. Not with negative root or positive root. What does it mean ethically? When you see an angry person, his eyes red, you can't say his eyes are evil because his eyes as material, they don't have roots, unwholesome roots. Okay. When somebody is smiling, you can see the person's facial complexion is very pleasant. But when we say the face has a lot of loving kindness, a lot of metta, actually it's not the face. The face, if we refer to the matter, the material, they are rootless. They have no metta. The metta is in the mind. The mind has roots. Then when the face is so pleasant because somebody is smiling, that face, at that moment, the facial material, the matter, which is the face, is being produced by the mind. You see? Being produced by the mind. To put it like, say, if somebody murders, okay, somebody else with a knife which is material, okay, is not evil. The hand of that man who holds the knife, the hand in itself, which is these materials, these matters, they are not evil either. They are not unwholesome either. Meaning you cannot apply ethics to the material. Then what is evil, what is unwholesome? It's the mind of that murderer. That murder. So this is to distinguish between mind and matter. Not sure if it's interested to you. Rootless, and the second, with condition. All these roots, they all have condition. No one creates them. Okay, they all have condition. Subject to taints. Taints means here defilements. Although they themselves have no unwholesome roots, these material they can defile your mind. They can make your mind negative. You see, that's what it says. Condition. They have condition to come into existence. Mundane. That is clear. Okay, they are not an achievement, spiritual achievement. So, when we meditate, the real intention is not to change the body, not to change the body to achieve enlightenment. It's the mind that achieves enlightenment. By achieving enlightenment, you reach supramundane level. So the matter or the physical body doesn't reach that. It has nothing to do with enlightenment. Pertaining to sense sphere, okay, it works with senses. Objectless. Okay, my eyes focus on visual object. But the one that takes the object, that really takes the object, is consciousness, mind, not my eyes. My eye is just the base. So this is how we analyze the mind and the matter. not to be abandoned. Well, okay, we should abandon our anger, our hatred, something to get rid of. But matter, because they are neither evil or wholesome, neither wholesome or no unwholesome. So they are not something we should achieve, not something we should abandon. We should abandon the negative roots of the mind, that like negative emotion, negative habits in the mind, like that. They are the thing we need to abandon. But the matter, the material that we discussed today, we don't need to abandon them. This is to say, when we purify the mind, when we do meditation, the physical purification is not part of it. If you compare this with the Indian, non-Buddhist Indian tradition, they are very interested in physical purification. You might have heard of, some of you might have heard of the tradition in Nepal. Okay, if women menstruate, they are not even allowed to live in the house. They have to live in a hut or in a shed in the garden, like that. That's because they believe physical purification, that sort of thing. We don't have it. And you can see people dipping themselves in the river Ganges, because by doing so, they said they purify themselves. The Buddha said that's nonsense. Udaka Suti, that water purification is not logical. We need to purify the mind. So Abhidhamma follows this principle. That is why it says there's nothing we have to abandon with matters. There's no purity, impurity in terms of matter. Only in terms of the mind we talk about purity, impurity, and the need for purification. I hope I have managed to interest you a little bit, okay, with this. Okay, maybe we can have about 10 minutes discussion, because tomorrow morning we have to go get up early and start chanting, 24-hour chanting at 4:30 in the morning. Now it's 8 p.m. plus. So any question?
Thank you so much for this talk, Venerable. I will ask you some questions from the chat. So the first question we have here. Thank you for a wonderful course. But before we go to the more detailed questions about the Abhidhamma, could you give some advice for just a few simple things we could do every day to try and cope with our anxieties as we go into the second wave of this pandemic? And this is from Odin.
Okay. I'd like to refer you to Dr. Tara Prash, okay, in America, who has a PhD in clinical psychology and a Buddhist meditation teacher. She has produced a diagram from within, how to reach out. Okay, so it has 3 zones. The first zone is the most narrow one, the narrowest one. The most confined one is called fear zone. Fear zone. When we talk about fear, in Abhidhamma we talk about dosa. In the Cetasika we talk about dosa. And dosa has its associate also. So without going into the list in detail, we talk about fear. With the COVID, we talk about fear. What do we do when we fear? I have the list here. I think after this, I will send to, I will email Odin so that you can also share with other people. What happened in the fear zone? We panic buy. We buy through panic. Such as toilet paper, food, medicine, and something we don't need, we still buy because of fear. And what do we do out of fear? We act like a victim. We just like to blame. So after listening to radio, after watching television, something that comes to our mind, something that we usually do is we blame. If this blaming habit comes out easily, we have to be careful. We have to practice mindfulness, breathing in and out, come back to the breathing, to center our mind, to stabilize our mind, so that fear doesn't become overwhelming. Sometimes, because we're in the fear zone, we also get irritated very easily. If you lose your patience very easily, or if negative attitude, negative emotion arises quite easily, then you need to know that you are in the fear zone. Sometimes fear also pushes people to search information. Even if it's the same, you have the same on the BBC website, on the CNN website, on Yahoo website, on many newspapers website, but then you search and share. Every piece of news about COVID. If that's your behavior, then fear starts overwhelming you. So the first thing is to be mindful of fear. Because with fear, as we know today, through Abhidhamma and also through neurology, Abhidhamma says consciousness produces or changes matter, changes the body. We have just discussed. Consciousness as a mode of origin. In clinical psychology and neurology, you say the same. If there is fear, if there's anxiety, what happens is that the amygdala, which is matter in the brain, is more active. It's related to fear. Fight and flight mode. So first is to acknowledge fear and then to return to breathing, to acknowledge fear and return to breathing. If we do that with mindfulness, we can expand reflection, we can actually reach out more. And Dr. Dharabraj calls this as learning zone. From fear zone, we go to learning zone. In the learning zone, we accept that a lot of things are out of control. Maybe we can't control. We want to control everything. okay, maybe we can't control. Because we cannot control, that is why COVID pandemic happens. Before it, a lot of other pandemics have already happened. So no one is really in control. There's no one with remote control and who arranges everything in the world. There's no such almighty things. Things happen based on human psychology, human behavior. So in the learning zone, what we do is that we start reflecting, examining our behavior. Our behavior, something that causes harm, we don't do. Meaning, if I'm watching television non-stop, watching the COVID-19 news non-stop, and it upsets you, then you would reduce that. You may watch any news. They are very, very repetitive. Okay, morning news, lunchtime news, afternoon news, late night news, they are all very repetitive. By listening to them again and again, actually we absorb a lot of negativity. So we will become more selective. This is the learning zone. And also what we eat, what we drink. We start, in the learning zone, we start planning our time properly. And we recognize something positive, that everyone is doing their best. You may agree or disagree with the Prime Minister, but he is doing his best. Okay, and more than 200 groups of scientists, virologists, they are trying their best to come up with a vaccine. And with your taxes, the government manages them and support those things that happen in every country. So in the learning zone, actually, we start seeing some opportunity that come from COVID. Opportunity to reflect, opportunity to reflect on human behavior, how we treat animals, how we treat our environment, how we treat each other. The mode of economics that we use. Okay. After 10, 12 years, 15 years of growth, then maybe 8 months, 9 months of economic inactivity, okay, we almost collapse. So that kind of thing that we can reflect on. This is about learning zone. Then, as a psychologist, Dr. Tara Brach, she comes up with growth zone. That's the last one. You have growth psychology, where we accept shortcoming and have the intention to improve. So that's growth psychology. So she uses the word growth zone. So with the COVID, we can be in one of the three zones: fear zone, learning zone, and growth zone. The best is the growth zone. We are learning from the COVID. It would be a shame if COVID comes and goes, okay, without learning anything from it, without being kinder, without being more reflective, without being wiser. But still quarreling as usual. This would be a waste. Sorry for the long answer, Odin. Okay, maybe just one more question. Let me hear, yeah.
So we have another question from Soemin. Dear Sayadaw, in 89 Chitta and 52 Cettasika, which one is making us to think our existence? Does awareness make us think that our existence is real? Thanks.
Kosomin, I would like to suggest that you examine the function of Cettasika. Okay. Awareness is one Cettasika. Okay, one Cettasika. Of course, thinking is the function of consciousness, Citta. And then, when we think, if we become aware of something, there's already Sati, Cettasika. By becoming aware of, say, for example, COVID, if we develop fear, now we go into akusala, unwholesome Cettasika and unwholesome Citta. But if we become kinder because of the COVID, now we go into Karuna Cettasika, and it's associate Citta. You know, Citta and Cettasika, consciousness and mental factors, they always work together. So I think it's interesting to observe and to investigate and study more about the Cettasika, because they are the one that makes one consciousness becomes 89. If you develop more sati, that's mindfulness, and also concentration, ekaggata, if the mind becomes very concentrated, then the thinking becomes clear. So we are talking about the thinking process. When you talk about thinking process, we have to think about the constituents of the mind at that time. If the constituents have a lot of unwholesome Cettasika, you can see how the thinking process will go. Okay, I think we spent almost 90 minutes, 85 minutes. Maybe we can stop here.
Yes, I think so. Thank you so much, Venerable.
Thank you everyone, okay, for joining this course. And this is just to give you a big picture. I resist, okay, talking. I've been going into detail because I don't want to unnecessarily confuse you. And if you grasp, okay, the principle and a big picture, the rest is quite manageable. The details, you know, they are not that difficult at all. Especially, how many years now since we have this? More than 1,000 years since we have this text. This text is a summary of the whole Abhidhamma canons. If we have to study the Abhidhamma canonical text one by one, it would take a lot of time. But this book summarizes everything, or nearly everything. And with this, we can go into the Abhidhamma canonical text, we can read them. Thank you everyone. I wish all of you, okay, good day back in England and good night in Asia.